in a world where kindness still shines through the cold. A young girl in a wheelchair finds herself stranded on a snowy Chicago street. No one stops until a humble mechanic steps forward. Neither of them knew that one act of compassion would catch the eye of a billionaire. And together, they'd create something that would change lives forever. Like, share and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get started. Emily Carter's day had started like any other, full of small routines and careful planning. Living in Chicago, she'd grown accustomed to the city's constant hum, the roar of traffic, the chatter of pedestrians, the rhythmic clang of the L train overhead. But today felt different, a tension in the air that she couldn't quite name. Her wheelchair, a sleek but ordinary model she had relied on since a car accident 3 years ago, carried her through the busy streets as she made her way to her favorite coffee shop. It was a crisp autumn morning. The air smelled faintly of roasted coffee beans and wet pavement from the previous night's rain. Emily had always loved mornings like this, when the sunlight cut through the skyscraper's shadows and painted golden streaks across the sidewalks. Yet today, every movement seemed to take more effort than usual, as if the city itself was conspiring against her. As she navigated the corner near Lake Street, a sudden commotion caught her attention. A coffee cart, pushed by a harried barista who seemed to have lost control, tipped over on the sidewalk. The wheels screeched against the pavement, spilling cups, steaming liquid, and pastries in every direction. Pedestrians screamed and jumped aside, but Emily had nowhere to go. Her wheelchair jammed slightly on a curb and she froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The liquid from the toppled cart splashed dangerously close, soaking the front of her jacket. Panic surged through her, not the panic of danger, but the frustrating, suffocating panic of being trapped. She had grown independent over the years, learning how to navigate the city's obstacles, but some things were beyond her control. The incident reminded her sharply of her limitations, and a bitter frustration welled up in her chest. Across the street, Jake Miller was finishing up his shift at his small garage on the outskirts of downtown. At 25, he was already known in his neighborhood for being the kind of mechanic who wouldn't just fix a car, but would make sure the driver left with a sense of relief. Jake had long, grease-stained jeans and a dark work shirt, his hands roughened by years of handling engines, wrenches, and stubborn bolts. He was tired after a long day, repairing a delivery truck that had broken down in the middle of rush hour, but something about the sudden movement on the street caught his attention. Through the glass of his garage window, he saw a young woman struggling in her wheelchair, inches from the spilled coffee and chaos. Without thinking, he grabbed a jacket and sprinted across the street, weaving through startled pedestrians and puddles, his instincts kicking in before any conscious thought. Emily's eyes widened as Jake reached her side. He bent down, assessing the situation quickly but gently, his expression a mix of concern and calm determination. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, his voice steady despite the surrounding chaos. Emily shook her head slightly, unable to find words at first. The smell of coffee and the shouts of passers-by filled her senses, but Jake's presence brought a strange calm. He carefully lifted her wheelchair over the spilled drinks, ensuring that the wheels didn't skid or catch on the uneven pavement. Emily felt a flicker of hope. She hadn't expected anyone to stop, especially in a city where people often looked away from others' struggles. As he stabilized the wheelchair, she noticed the red of his scraped knuckles and the grease stains on his sleeves. He had clearly come straight from work. Yet here he was, fully focused on helping her. Once the immediate danger had passed, Jake inspected the wheelchair. The front wheel had caught a piece of debris from the overturned cart, slightly bending the frame. "I can fix this," he said, though it was clear the repair would require more than a quick adjustment. Emily's hands trembled slightly on the armrests, both from fear and gratitude. I didn't know anyone would stop," she admitted quietly. Jake smiled reassuringly. "Most people get caught up in their own day, but I've seen enough accidents to know it doesn't take long for things to get worse if someone doesn't step in." His words were simple, but they carried weight. Emily had spent so many moments feeling invisible, ignored by strangers. Now in an instant she felt seen, not just noticed, but truly acknowledged. As they waited for a break in the street traffic to move the wheelchair safely to a nearby bench, Emily noticed Jake glancing at his phone. "You okay with me checking something?" he asked. Emily nodded, and he made a few quick calls, mostly local repair contacts, a tow service if necessary, but he returned his attention to her quickly. Every few minutes, he gently adjusted the chair, tested the brakes, and reassured her that she wouldn't be stranded. Emily realized that his kindness wasn't just a reaction. It was deliberate, thought out, and persistent. The warmth of that realization was almost overwhelming. For the first time in a long while, she felt that the city might hold not just challenges, but allies. Meanwhile, across town, Richard Hawthorne, a billionaire tech entrepreneur, was checking his emails from the comfort of his high-rise office. Richard had spent decades funding innovations, particularly those that could improve people's daily lives. While reading a report about mobility technology, he came across a short news clip circulating on social media, a video of a young woman in a wheelchair struggling on the streets of Chicago, aided by a mechanic who seemed to go above and beyond. Something about the scene struck him, not just the accident itself, but the human element. The footage showed determination, care, and ingenuity. He paused the video, studying Emily's expression, Jake's movements, and the interaction that unfolded in mere seconds. In his experience, real change often started with small acts of courage, and he sensed that this encounter might be one of those rare moments that could grow into something larger. Back on the sidewalk, Jake helped Emily carefully navigate to a nearby crosswalk, ensuring that she avoided puddles, broken pavement, and the occasional careless pedestrian. Emily's hands gripped the wheelchair's wheels tightly, a mix of nervousness and cautious excitement filling her. Jake guided her skillfully, explaining each step, each adjustment, as if he were walking her through a complicated path, but with patience and care. "You're doing great," he said, his tone encouraging rather than patronizing. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. For so long she had encountered pity or indifference, but here was someone treating her with respect, seeing her as capable, yet offering help when truly needed. It was a rare combination that left a lasting impression. By the time they reached a quieter street, the chaos of the accident behind them, Emily felt a sense of relief she hadn't experienced in years. The city's usual noise seemed muted, replaced by the focused attention of someone who genuinely cared. Jake inspected the wheelchair one last time, noting that it would need a proper repair in his garage. "If you're okay with it, we can head to my workshop," he suggested. Emily hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Trust didn't come easily, but the sincerity in Jake's eyes made the decision simple. She wheeled herself toward his garage, aware that this small detour might just mark the beginning of something unexpected, a chance to reclaim control, to push boundaries, and to discover the potential within herself. Little did Emily know that this seemingly ordinary morning, an accident that could have been dismissed as minor or unlucky, was about to set in motion events that would change her life forever. Across town, Richard Hawthorne had already begun making calls to his contacts, intrigued by the potential of a collaboration that combined raw talent, ingenuity, and courage. What had started as a chaotic street incident would soon evolve into a partnership between a young woman determined to regain her independence, a skilled mechanic with a heart for helping others, and a billionaire with the vision to make the impossible possible. The stage was set, the players in motion, and Emily's journey was only just beginning. After the accident, Emily and Jake arrived at his small garage tucked between aging brick buildings on the outskirts of Chicago. The space smelled of oil, rubber, and metal, a comforting scent to Jake. Though somewhat intimidating to Emily, she wheeled herself carefully inside, eyes wide at the clutter of tools, spare parts, and half-finished projects stacked neatly on shelves. The garage had a warm glow from hanging fluorescent lights, casting long shadows on the concrete floor. Jake gestured for her to park the wheelchair near a workbench. "I can fix the wheel today," he said, rolling up his sleeves, "but I think we can do more. There's potential here, something better than just a simple repair." Emily looked at him skeptically. "Better than my wheelchair? What do you mean?" Jake smiled faintly, wiping grease from his hands. "I mean, it doesn't have to just get you from point A to point B. It could do more, faster, smoother, safer." Emily's curiosity was piqued. She had spent years adapting to limitations, accepting the boundaries of her wheelchair. But Jake's words hinted at possibilities she had never imagined. She hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Okay, let's try it." Jake began disassembling parts of the wheelchair, examining the wheels, frame, and joints. He talked her through every step, asking questions about her daily challenges: curbs, ramps, crowded sidewalks, uneven pavements, and long walks in the city. Emily shared her experiences openly, describing the frustrations of being overlooked, the times she had waited for hours for accessible transportation, and the difficulties in crowded spaces. As she spoke, Jake jotted notes, sketched rough diagrams, and muttered technical solutions to himself. Emily marveled at how his mind worked, solving problems with creativity and practicality at the same time. Days turned into weeks, and the small garage became their workshop and sanctuary. Emily spent hours detailing her ideas for the wheelchair's design, from ergonomic adjustments to adaptive technology that could respond to her movements. Jake experimented with motors, reinforced frames, and advanced wheel suspension. He scavenged parts from old bicycles, scooters, and spare machinery, turning the garage into a lab of ingenuity. Emily sometimes struggled with technical language, but Jake explained patiently, translating mechanical jargon into understandable terms. Each test ride was a mixture of exhilaration and frustration. The wheelchair would sometimes jerk, misalign, or fail entirely, but every failure became a lesson. Emily discovered patience she hadn't known she possessed, while Jake learned to listen more closely to her feedback, adjusting designs to suit real-world challenges. One afternoon, as autumn leaves blew through the open garage door, a sleek black car rolled to a stop outside. Richard Hawthorne stepped out, his presence commanding yet approachable. Emily froze slightly, feeling overwhelmed by the idea of a billionaire visiting a small neighborhood garage. Jake, however, greeted him with calm familiarity. "Mr. Hawthorne," Jake said, shaking his hand. "I wasn't expecting you so soon." Richard smiled warmly. "I saw the news clip. I think there's something remarkable here. What you're doing with Emily's wheelchair could change lives. I wanted to see it firsthand." Emily's heart raced. She had heard of Richard's philanthropic efforts, his investments in mobility technology, but never imagined he would take personal interest in their project. Yet here he was, standing in their humble garage, observing with a keen eye and evident curiosity. Richard asked questions, but unlike others who might have judged or dismissed the project as minor, he listened intently. He inquired about engineering challenges, potential improvements, and real-life applications. Emily spoke confidently, explaining her struggles navigating Chicago streets and envisioning a wheelchair that could climb stairs, adjust to uneven surfaces, and integrate with smart city technology. Richard nodded approvingly, occasionally jotting notes on his tablet. "You're thinking beyond mobility," he remarked. "You're thinking independence, freedom, empowerment. That's exactly what innovation should do." Jake exchanged a glance with Emily. The endorsement was more than financial. It was validation. For the first time, they felt their small project could reach beyond the confines of the garage into real impact for people across the nation. With Richard's support, the project accelerated. He provided funding for advanced materials, motors, and microprocessors, while connecting them with engineers and designers who could assist remotely. Emily and Jake's teamwork deepened, forming a rhythm of creativity and execution. Emily's design ideas became more ambitious. She proposed a lightweight frame using carbon fiber, a navigation system that could sense obstacles, and adjustable controls tailored to her body. Jake turned these concepts into mechanical reality, often working late into the night, fueled by determination and cups of coffee. Sometimes mistakes were made, wheels misaligned, circuits shorted, or controls malfunctioned, but they learned quickly. Each setback strengthened their resolve. Every evening, as the city's lights flickered on, Emily would test the wheelchair, feeling incremental improvements, marveling at what was once impossible. The project also forged a personal bond between Emily and Jake. Beyond the mechanics and design, they shared stories of their lives, the hopes, fears and dreams that shaped who they were. Emily spoke of her desire to attend college, to create art, and to explore the world beyond Chicago. Jake shared his background growing up in a working-class neighborhood, learning mechanics from his father and dreaming of building something meaningful rather than just fixing cars. Their connection went beyond gratitude and mentorship. It was rooted in shared vision, mutual respect, and an unspoken understanding of the obstacles each had faced. Emily's wheelchair had been a symbol of limitation, but through their collaboration, it became a symbol of possibility. One chilly evening, Emily rolled the wheelchair out of the garage and tested a prototype they had been refining for weeks. The new model responded instantly to her movements, navigating the uneven pavement with surprising agility. Small motors adjusted to bumps and inclines automatically, while sensors guided her away from obstacles. She felt a thrill she hadn't experienced in years. Freedom, control, and excitement all at once. Jake watched with a grin, and Richard, observing from the car parked nearby, clapped quietly. "This is it," Richard said. "The start of something extraordinary." Emily laughed, feeling tears prick her eyes. She had never imagined that an accident, a chance meeting, and countless hours of effort could culminate in such a moment of triumph. As autumn turned to early winter, the trio continued testing, refining, and perfecting the wheelchair. Word of their innovations spread through social media, local news outlets, and tech blogs. People were captivated not only by the technology, but by the human story behind it. A young woman determined to overcome limitations, a mechanic committed to helping, and a billionaire willing to invest in dreams beyond mere profit. Emily's confidence grew alongside the wheelchair itself. She began envisioning its application in other cities, parks, universities, and public spaces. Every new feature reflected a solution to a real-world problem, bridging the gap between design and lived experience. Through it all, Emily learned resilience in a new way. She realized that limitations could be challenged, not accepted. Jake, too, discovered satisfaction in building something larger than himself, something with impact beyond the garage walls. Richard found inspiration in witnessing their determination, seeing firsthand how collaboration, creativity, and heart could produce innovation that profit alone never could. Together, they formed an unlikely but formidable team, each bringing unique skills, perspectives, and energy. Their work wasn't just about a wheelchair, it was about redefining independence, challenging assumptions, and showing the world that ingenuity and empathy could create change. By the time December arrived, the prototype was complete. Emily maneuvered the wheelchair smoothly over the streets and sidewalks of Chicago, even handling small obstacles that would have been impossible with her old chair. Jake documented every adjustment, every performance metric, while Richard prepared plans for a public unveiling at a tech showcase. They were ready to present not just a product, but a story of determination, collaboration, and the power of believing in the impossible. What had begun as a simple act of kindness on a chaotic city street had grown into a project with national potential, a project that demonstrated how three people from completely different walks of life could transform adversity into opportunity. The day of the National Innovation Expo in New York City arrived, with a crisp winter chill in the air. Emily, Jake, and Richard arrived early, their energy a mix of excitement and nerves. The expo hall buzzed with the hum of visitors, journalists, and inventors showcasing their creations. Bright banners hung overhead, and the smell of polished floors, coffee, and electronics filled the vast space. Emily rolled her wheelchair through the crowd, every wheel movement a test of the refined prototype they had built over months. Jake followed closely, a toolkit tucked under one arm just in case, while Richard guided them through the throngs, fielding questions from attendees and media alike. Emily felt a strange mixture of pride and vulnerability. She had gone from a young woman struggling on the streets of Chicago to the centerpiece of a technology showcase watched by thousands. As they approached the stage, cameras flashed, capturing the moment for live broadcasts. Social media and countless news outlets. Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself. The wheelchair she sat in wasn't just a piece of equipment. It was a symbol of their journey. It could climb stairs, adjust automatically to uneven terrain, navigate tight spaces, and even connect to smartphone apps to customize settings. Every feature represented hours of trial and error, discussions, and personal insights. As she maneuvered onto the stage, the audience erupted in applause. Jake stood to her left, hands clasped behind his back, while Richard's familiar, encouraging smile came from the VIP section. For Emily, it was surreal. The city streets she had once struggled to navigate felt a world away. Emily began the demonstration, explaining the technology behind the wheelchair in a calm, confident voice. She described the sensors that detected obstacles, the adaptive suspension system that absorbed shocks, and the smart navigation system that could calculate optimal paths. She shared her personal story, how a single moment of help from a stranger had led to months of collaboration, learning, and innovation. Her words resonated with the audience, who were captivated not only by the technical marvel, but by the human story of resilience and teamwork. Jake occasionally added technical clarifications, highlighting the engineering feats behind her ideas, while Richard reinforced the potential societal impact. The audience responded with a mixture of awe, respect, and inspiration, many visibly moved by the tale of courage and ingenuity. After the demonstration, reporters flocked around the trio, cameras clicking and microphones thrust forward. Emily answered questions about usability, safety, and the broader implications for people with mobility challenges. Jake spoke about the engineering process, emphasizing the importance of collaboration and listening to the end user. Richard highlighted the need for investment in technology that could enhance quality of life rather than merely generate profit. Each question was met with thoughtful responses, demonstrating not only the wheelchair's capabilities, but the vision behind it. Emily realized that the audience wasn't just reacting to a machine, they were responding to a story of hope, partnership, and the human spirit. For her, that realization was almost more powerful than the applause itself. Throughout the day, visitors tested the wheelchair themselves. Some were parents with children who had mobility challenges, while others were older adults or individuals with temporary injuries. Each trial ride was met with smiles, laughter, and amazement at how seamlessly the device adjusted to various terrains. Emily guided them patiently, explaining the controls, the sensors, and the customization features. Jake adjusted settings on the fly, ensuring safety and comfort, while Richard engaged with potential investors and media representatives. By midday, the prototype had drawn a crowd large enough to cause a minor traffic jam within the expo hall. Attendees were not only impressed by the technology, but inspired by the story behind it, how three individuals, from different backgrounds and with vastly different resources, had come together to achieve something extraordinary. As the expo continued, Emily reflected on how far she had come. The girl who had sat frozen on a Chicago street, feeling trapped and overlooked, now commanded the attention of a national audience. Her confidence had grown alongside the wheelchair, fueled by months of learning, persistence, and teamwork. She realized that this invention was more than mobility. It was independence, empowerment, and possibility. Jake, who had always been passionate about mechanics but hesitant about larger-scale impact, now saw his work in a new light. Richard, accustomed to backing ventures with financial projections, recognized that genuine innovation came from heart, empathy, and lived experience. Together, they had demonstrated that combining skill, creativity, and compassion could yield results far beyond what any one person could achieve alone. By late afternoon, the expo organizers invited Emily and the team to a panel discussion about innovation in accessibility. Emily spoke eloquently about her journey, emphasizing the importance of listening to the people technology aims to serve. Jake discussed the engineering challenges and the iterative process of turning ideas into functioning prototypes. Richard highlighted the societal implications and the need for investment in technologies that addressed real-world problems. The panel concluded with a standing ovation, the audience inspired not just by the wheelchair, but by the story it represented. Emily felt a deep sense of fulfillment, realizing that their efforts had not only produced a remarkable device, but also sparked conversations about inclusivity, innovation, and the power of collaboration. As the expo wound down, a journalist approached Emily with a question that caught her off guard. "What does this mean for you personally?" she asked. Emily paused, considering the journey from that fateful day in Chicago to this moment on a New York stage. "It means everything," she replied finally. "It means that help can come from unexpected places. That determination, collaboration, and belief in possibility can turn limitations into opportunities. And it means that one small act of kindness, like a stranger stopping to help me, can change the course of your life completely." Jake smiled beside her, and Richard nodded. The moment captured the essence of their story. Courage, empathy, and vision had converged to make the impossible possible. As evening fell, Emily, Jake, and Richard stood outside the expo hall, watching the city lights reflect on the snow-dusted streets of Manhattan. The day had been exhausting, but the exhilaration of what they had achieved kept them energized. Plans for production, distribution, and further innovation were already being discussed, but for now they allowed themselves to simply appreciate the moment. Emily felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years, not just because of the wheelchair's capabilities, but because of the journey it represented. Jake felt pride in his work and gratitude for being part of something greater than himself. Richard felt inspired, reminded of why he had chosen to support innovation with heart, not just spreadsheets. As they prepared to leave, Emily rolled her wheelchair slowly, testing its adaptive functions one last time before heading back to the hotel. Each movement felt effortless, a testament to months of ingenuity, collaboration, and persistence. She knew challenges lay ahead, scaling production, ensuring accessibility, and refining the technology. But for the first time, she felt truly capable of facing them. Jake walked beside her, already brainstorming improvements, while Richard discussed potential partners and funding strategies. They were no longer just a mechanic, a young woman, and a billionaire. They were a team united by vision and purpose. Their work had the potential to inspire millions, proving that obstacles could be overcome through ingenuity, determination, and the willingness to help one another. By the time they returned to their hotel room, Emily's mind was buzzing with ideas. She considered the people who would benefit from their invention, the communities they could reach, and the lives they could change. She realized that the wheelchair was no longer just a tool for herself. It was a platform for empowerment, a symbol of resilience and creativity. Jake reflected on the project, thinking about the countless hours in the garage, the mistakes, the breakthroughs, and the trust that had developed between him and Emily. Richard, often focused on metrics and returns, felt a rare sense of pride in seeing tangible human impact unfold before his eyes. Together, they had achieved something that transcended technology. It was a story of human connection, determination, and the transformative power of collaboration. As sleep finally claimed her that night, Emily dreamed not of limitations but of possibility. She envisioned a future where mobility challenges didn't define a person's opportunities, where collaboration could create solutions that empowered, and where acts of kindness could ripple into life-changing experiences. Jake dreamed of the next iteration, refining, improving, and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Richard dreamed of expanding the project nationwide, turning innovation into accessibility for millions. And in those dreams, the city streets of Chicago, the small garage, and the expo stage in New York were all connected, a continuous journey from struggle to triumph. Together, a wheelchair, a mechanic, and a billionaire had made the impossible possible.